Good morning. Normally I'm really nervous, but I cracked a tooth a couple of days ago, so my jaw is on fire, and I have had 800 milligrams of ibuprofen and caffeine, so I am ready to go. The title of our, do you have our slide deck? The title of our presentation is Unveiling Student Success, a School Improvement Journey. And it is a journey, and we're going to share a snapshot of about 5 years of our journey with Greenville Middle School. Is there a clicker? You're in charge of the clicker. Young tech guy. We have a slide where you can scan our presentation and follow along with us. And while you're doing that, I'll just introduce myself. As Ms. Brittany mentioned, I'm Lisa Adair. I'm from Butler County. I started my career a little over 30 years ago in Miami-Dade County. I started at an inner city school in Liberty City where there was about 2,500 kids in our school. It was a big school. And now I work in a small rural school in Butler County, so I've gotten a great wealth and breadth of experience. But as those of you, I don't know, some of you may have been on as long of a journey as I. As you know, kids are kids wherever you are, so they come with some similar challenges. And I am just thankful that I've been able to serve for all these years and continue to serve. I'll let Mr. Marlowe introduce himself.
Hey, good morning. So my name is Bryant Marlowe. I'm the principal of Greenville Middle School. Now, I say that, but as of last Thursday, my Board of Education has approved me to now be the principal of Greenville High School. So right now, well, hold on, because right now I'm stuck between a rock and a hard spot because I'm balancing two schools, right? I'm trying to close out Greenville Middle as well as trying to get my head wrapped around Greenville High School. And I will say Greenville Middle School is no longer in school improvement, but however, Greenville High School is. And so my colleagues are like, what are you thinking? I've worked with some great individuals. Dr. Killingsworth used to be one of my CSI representatives, Mr. William Jones, Dr. LaWanda Mitchell. And so now I'm no longer working with those individuals, but guess what? I'm moving back into that element to work with someone else with school improvement. But it's all a part of the process, and I've learned a lot from those individuals. Now, of course, my bio is up, and I'm not going to read through that. But one thing I do want you to know is that I enjoy getting up every day, going to work, working with students, bottom line. And so I just hope we say something today that you can take back to your district that will move students forward or confirm the awesome work that you're already doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marlowe. He is awesome. Just quickly, a little bit about our district makeup. For those of you that don't know, Greenville is where our Board of Education sits. We have McKenzie and Georgiana as part of our Butler County community. Greenville's about 45 miles south of here on I-65. We have a little over 2,600 students. You see the demographic makeup there. All of our schools are Title I schools. We have 2 unit schools in the south end. Then we have a pre-K through 2 elementary school, a 3rd and 4th grade elementary school, the middle school, which is 5th through 8th grade, and then of course our high school. So we have 4 schools in Greenville. We are full CEP participation. And then you see, just as Dr. Carter mentioned, we have a lot of our teachers, over 12% of our teachers are on provisional or emergency certificates. So when we're talking about sustainability and trying to continue our work, we are always aware that we're having to do a little more due diligence with our professional development, and you'll hear that constantly through this presentation.
So I want to give you the makeup of Greenville Middle School. Currently, we're at 527 students. When I first arrived, we were about 700. So of course, enrollment has gone down. Definitely saw a drop after COVID. Students just did not come back. A lot of them felt that they could be successful on virtual and remain there. And so we've been struggling with enrollment. So it has decreased throughout the years. Our elementary school is sending in small classes. I've sent a few large classes to Greenville High School, but the enrollment has gone down. And of course, you can see our makeup. We're non-traditional. Of course, we have those fifth graders on campus, which is nice because I can go over there and get hugs and those things from those fifth graders and then walk over to the 7th, 8th grade side and they're dodging you. So it is a good balance. You can see our disadvantage. Special ed population is definitely high. For you math people, if you do those numbers, you're talking about almost 88, 90 IEPs, right? In some form or fashion, whether OHI, SLD, you name it. And then, of course, you can see our certified teachers along with the provisional. Our historical data, when I first got there, we were listed as a 61, and you can see the progression throughout the years. Of course, 19 to 21, COVID, and then we began to make gains that second year, at my second year at Greenville Middle. And we're going to talk about a few things that were put in place to move the students forward. But when we came off of COVID, we had an amazing year. We went from a 68, not having any data reported, and moved to a 75. And it was hard work that was put in by the teachers. They bought in, as well as the students. Now, this past year, we did go back a few points. We went back to we dropped back to a 73. We lost points in the growth category, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. If you look, you can see that in 21-22, we had 100% growth, and we were about 48% with academic achievement. Now, if you look at last year's, the academic achievement went from a 48 to about a 52% of our students being proficient. So we are getting students on grade level, but however, we did decline slightly in the growth category. We went from 100% the previous year to about 92.4. And when we really dug into the data, we realized that our special ed population did not show growth like they should have, as well as some of our higher performing students, those students that are scoring level 4 on the ACAP, they still scored level 4 on the ACAP, but they did not show growth. And so that's how we lost some points there as well.
The way we've structured the presentation is by posing 4 guiding questions, and then we're going to look at it from the district perspective, and then Mr. Marlowe will bring the school point of view. So our first question is, think back to when the school was first identified, what structures were in place already that contributed to the school improvement process, and what did we have to change? So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we did at the district level, and this wasn't just with Greenville Middle School, it was with the district as a whole. I don't know where y'all are in your careers. Who remembers ASSIST? It's been a minute, right? But if you remember ASSIST, it was almost like a showcase piece. You told everything you did. You hope you told the narrative to all the good things. You'd slip that bad data in there, but then you would tell about all the great things. But it wasn't really a great tool to drive improvement. It was more about showcasing what you did. Just as Greenville Middle School was kind of moving in school improvement, we have this brand new tool of Cognia. And so now we have really a great tool that gives us a framework of being able to focus on those critical initiatives and really use it to drive that improvement process. And so to start that whole process off, we immediately started establishing some collaborations and partnerships. One with Cognia. We brought in Andre Harrison that first year, and he really kind of walked our leadership teams through the new tool. And then when Mr. Jones went into school improvement, we had him go a complete year in our cycle, and I'll let you see our touch points. We'll go over that, I think, in the next slide. But he worked us through an entire year of the continual improvement process. So we have really been able to learn how to use that tool well. Of course, I'm always reaching out. When Dr. Killingsworth said, we're afraid to call her, I am not that person. ALSDE, one of your brothers told on you. I was at a Cognia conference, and I met this gentleman, charming, and he says, Lisa Adair, my sister at the State Department says you call them all the time. I said, yes, I do. They are great partners to have, so I appreciate them. And then, of course, getting strong relationships with your vendors and your other stakeholders. But most of all, and I don't have it on the slide, and I am sorry to you, thank you, my fellow federal programs people. Yeah, District 8 and District 11, or Region 8 and Region 11, I could not have walked this process without you. They have taught me how to play well with others. I appreciate everything you've done, all you've shared, who you are. Let me cry, let me scream. Thank you so much. And I just appreciate the way you collaborate and help each other out. And thank you for all you've done for me. We had, at the time we went into school improvement, new leadership from the top down. I was just coming into the district and moving into federal programs. Mr. Marlowe was just coming into Greenville Middle School. So we had a lot of new leadership, which could be a scary thing, but it actually was one of those great changes that helped give us a breath of fresh air and drive the change that was needed to move Greenville Middle School out of school improvement. And then another thing that I've spent some time on, and I'm just now getting it fine-tuned, is aligning our yearly school improvement planning process with our budget planning process. So every time we have one of those touch points with our ASIP, we're also touching our budgets and making sure we're aligning those processes. Here's my timeline. If you were here yesterday, I hope Cognia is not in here. Mine's a little different, and I'll tell you why. And our plans, we run the plan July 1 to June 30, but of course our budgets are going to fall in the fiscal year. So next year, our budgets that we're aligning to the ASIP, we are going to, those budgets start October 1, obviously. So we want a plan in place before school starts. So we start our planning process in July 1. We, if there's any new ASIP team members, they come to us then. About the second week, I have a very comprehensive needs assessment that I shared years ago. Actually, it was shared with me by our previous federal programs director, Miss Rita McLean, love her. So I shared it with federal programs folks years ago, but if you would like it, please email. You have my contact information. I'll be glad to email it to you. They complete their needs assessment, and then here's what's different for me as opposed to Cognia. We don't do the evaluation process until July. If you try to evaluate your school year in April or May, you're still in it, and you still have summer. You're planning summer, and that's part of your plan. So for us, we meet in July. We usually spend 2 days at this point. Sometimes we've spent 3. They've collected their needs assessment data. Then we sit together as leadership teams. I call all the teams in. And when I say leadership teams, you need your principals there. Principals have to be there. If they're not invested in their plan, they don't need to be principal. So principals have to be at the table. They bring their assistants. They usually have a counselor, media specialist, teachers, a parent, in some cases students, but they normally don't come to the district office. But we spend a couple of days doing the evaluation, then the envisioning, because now you have last year's data, you can envision what you need moving forward, and we began that planning process. By the end of that process, we hope that the leadership teams have a presentation ready so that when they open schools and they have that PD day with their teachers where they're doing their safety trainings, any mandatory trainings, they also get to present their ASIP to their faculty so they can garner some feedback. So when they come back before October, we can implement any kind of feedback we might need to in their ASIP. So my leadership teams will then, in August, attend the Federal Programs Advisory Committee. That's when I release final budgets to them. And then they spend time at their local school with their needs assessment, their ASEP draft, and their budgets to begin to fine-tune those ASEPs. And then I just pull ASEP chairs in September to do the diagnostic and make sure their budgets are fully aligned with their ASEPs. And then we have a touch point January, February, where we're progress monitoring, and that's when budget revisions happen. Monthly, and we release, I have a great federal programs bookkeeper. She makes sure that our principals get an up-to-the-minute budget spreadsheet of where they are with their title funds or their CSI funds or 21st Century. She's awesome. And then quarterly, we're asking school leaders to make sure they are touching their ASEP, realigning, making sure that they're moving forward and making progress with their initiatives.
All right, so I heard Ms. Adair make the mention about principals need to be a part of this process, and I heard some moans in the audience. If that's not happening, I'm telling you, the school is being set up for failure. A lot of times principals want to give that duty off to an AP. There is no way an ASEP should be built and a principal is not on that committee. There is no way. So let me start by saying that. So as I transitioned into Greenville Middle School, there were 4 pillars I had to look at: climate and culture, and parental involvement, instructional focus, and discipline. And so let me talk about climate and culture. Let me give you my definition of how I explain it, okay? What is climate and what is culture? Climate is the temperature that the adults set inside the building. In return, which creates the culture that the students should possess in their behavior and how they should act inside the school. Those are the 2 things, because I'm telling you, a lot of times when things go wrong, it's not because of the children. Guess who it is? It's the adults. In education, a lot of times it's the adults. So when the adults are not on the same page, when the adults are not building relationships, when the adults are not being held accountable, then we have a fall in scores, behavior, and everything else. So you must start there. Student apathy. When I first got to Greenville Middle, students just didn't care. Now, not that the behavior was bad, but hey, I'm going to come to school, I'm going to sit in this class for 54 minutes, I'm not going to bother you, you don't bother me, and then when the bell rings, I'm going to go and do the same thing in the next period. So we had to increase that. We had to increase student engagement. How do we get the students involved? Parental involvement. I will say, I'm going to give my parents a shout out at Greenville Middle. They have increased in the area of parental involvement since I first arrived, so definitely. And there were things that we put in place. A lot of times when you feed them, not using federal funds, but when we feed them, right, they do come, okay? Instructional focus, data discussions, data meetings were non-existent. That's one thing you had to focus on. And then, of course, discipline. So if you're a federal program director sitting in this room and you have a school that's now in school improvement, you need to get with your principal, and these are the 4 things that I will start with that administrator. And here are a few pictures that we just want to provide. I love taking pictures because it's documentation that it happened, right? And so, as you can see, this is a 2-day event that occurred at Greenville High School where all the ASEP teams came together inside the district and we worked on the ASEPs together. We talked out loud, we talked as a team. Mr. William Jones has been involved in this process of walking us through of what it should look like and condensed in our plan. When he first got there, I think we had some plans that may have been 60 pages long. And you know those things are not going back and being checked. Some of those things were just checking the box. So we were able to condense our plan and actually put something in place that we could actually follow. The next slide is a data meeting that occurred at Greenville Middle School. Data meetings took place bi-weekly. And I had to make sure that it was important to me, so I put it on the schedule and I made sure teachers understood that you do not schedule a doctor's appointment or anything on the data meeting days. It did not occur. It was to the point that my superintendent knew that I am not canceling a data meeting. I don't care what happens. He called me one day one day I had a data meeting scheduled for after school, and he was like, I need you in my office as soon as the buses leave the parking lot. And I was like, no, sir, I have data meeting, like before I knew it. And I was like, respectfully. And later on, when I had conversations with him, the next day I reported to his office, right? He was like, I appreciate that, because he knew it was important. And he knew that he knew what I was the tone I was trying to set at Greenville Middle School. And so definitely have the data meetings and make sure they're meaningful. And what are you looking at when it comes to the data? We'll talk about that.
Speaking of data, our second question is, what role did data play in the district's and the school's approach to improvement efforts and the allocation of resources? I think the first thing we had to do is, there had been enough talk about the importance of data by the time we get to 2017, 2018, but we had to move from analyzing data to what are next steps. Everybody could look at the data, know what the data meant, but then what do you do with it? And so we spent a lot of time with professional development, a lot of time digging down at the skill level of data, and really sharpening the RTI process. And that is always a work in process. We also had to understand, a lot of times we're looking at lag data. That's, your report card is the lag data. It's done, there's nothing you can do about it. But how to really use the progress monitoring process to inform growth, inform instruction and student growth. And we did a book study from the book, it's a Stephen Covey book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution. And one is about focusing on what is important, making the main thing the main thing. The other is understanding lead measures, that lead data. Keep a compelling scoreboard, and you'll see that when Mr. Marlowe talks about his data boards. And then the cadence of accountability. It's all about the data. It's not about blame. It's holding everybody accountable and owning the data and taking that ownership to move it. And then using data, of course, to determine the need, and that's drilling down on that needs assessment. On that needs assessment, there's a place to put all kinds of data and look at it from different ways and compare it from last year to this year. So really using that to kind of drive the plan. And then I'm a biggie on ensuring resources are supporting student success. Federal dollars are meant to level the playing field. And that's the bottom line. If they're not bringing equity and access and driving student achievement, then we are not being good stewards of money. So we really have had to have those tough conversations that Dr. Chestnut was talking about earlier. And then we have had to do a lot of professional development. Preparing staff for changing modes of learning, we had no schooling. We closed our doors when COVID hit in March of 2020 and didn't open up till late in August of 2020. So it was like 5 months kids were without schooling, and then they had a choice to do virtual or in person. And then the year after that, we required everybody to come back into our buildings. But there was a lot of interruption, and just keeping your finger on that kind of data, like where are we, became a very scary process, but one we were all in and dug into. And then looking at student engagement. Student engagement changed, as Mr. Marlowe mentioned, during COVID. Kids didn't come back the same. Teachers didn't come back the same. And now we're finding we didn't have a one-to-one initiative before COVID. Now we have one, but now we see it being a crutch almost. The Chromebook is getting in between the teacher and the student. So we're trying to kind of retrain. We're trying to get everybody on board with the computers. Now we're trying to train them to use it as a tool. So that's been a moving target for us. District-wide, we've had a STEM initiative. And then all of these data points, we've had ever-changing data points. We went, in this time period, we went from having a Scantron assessment to ACAP. It's a great change, but it's a moving data point. We went to new ELA standards, new math standards. We needed them. It was a good change, but it's a moving data point. We have new assessments our common assessments. They have to change with the changing standards. So data, it was a challenge taking all of those things on at once, but a worthy one.
Okay, so we're going to try to move pretty quickly through the next slides. If you look at it, these are just some things that, as a federal programs director, that you can work alongside of your building level administrator. Okay, so just some things that you need to just keep in mind: identifying the instructional focus, reviewing the benchmark data. What benchmark assessments do you use, and are they comfortable with being able to dig down into the data to see exactly what's needed? Analyzing for patterns and trends, that humongous document that we do that needs assessment, making sure that they are pulling every data point in to see exactly what trends they see. How can we support the students that need that safety net as well as the slingshot, those students that are high performing, how can we excel them? Monitoring the implementation, ensuring consistent use of the platforms. There are no need to all these vendors out here that have these pricey platforms, right? They're not cheap. There's no need to purchase those things and then an administrator or teacher and the students are not using them. So that's one thing that we really had to focus on, consistent use of those platforms. Elements of strategic teaching. I wanted everyone to have some form of consistency when you went to one classroom to the next to ensure that teachers have a clear before, during, and after. An agenda board is posted. And then also student engagement, turn and talk, think, pair, share, you name it. And then student data notebooks, student owning their data. And I have some pictures to show exactly what we, things that we did when it came to, to those measures. When it comes to the data notebooks and students owning their data, it gives them the accountability piece in it, right? And we should already be doing an advisory period. That's what Dr. Mackey says, right? We should have an advisory. We call it Friday goal setting, but it's our advisory. And to make sure those things are happening, and student incentives, ensuring that that we are securing funds to be able to reward our students. Now, I know a lot of times it's hard to use those federal funds. It is. And if you have questions, get with your federal programs director. Let them get with the State Department of what we can and cannot do. Now, we bump heads sometime. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but I will say I like pinstripes. I like to wear them occasionally, but not in a jail cell, okay? So she keeps me on track with that. And also, here are a few pictures of our data meetings that take place, also students working in their student notebooks. And then also, if you look at the next picture, this is the compelling school board. We created a data room where every student has a magnet. And every time we had a benchmark assessment, we would come back and move those magnets. That's what we did. And we were looking for trends of students that are making improvement, students that are stagnant, and then students that are going backwards. And I think Ms. Adair want to make a mention.
Not only, of course, this is for faculty. They're compelling scoreboards. They get to see all of their students and where they are. But we also had some compelling scoreboards in other schools, like out in the lobby when parents came in, so they could see where we are with attendance, or outside teacher doors. There were AR compelling scoreboards, or some might do student grades. So it wasn't just contain those compelling scoreboards to data rooms, but this is the most important for faculty, to keep their eyes on the prize.
All right, and then another thing, just student incentives. Like I said before, if you have it in the ASIP, some things are allowable, right? And I know you know what's allowable and what's not, so make sure that you're keeping your administrators on track with spending those funds correctly. If you have any questions, of course, once again, Dr. Killingsworth and her amazing staff will definitely walk you through that. And sometimes you just have to get out and beg. A lot of times, and I'm fortunate to have this opportunity, I was able to coach a young man in high school by the name of Adair Smith. He played football at Greenville High School. Not too long ago, he signed a 4-year, $66 million contract with the Green Bay Packers and was just recently re-signed to the Cleveland Browns. And there have been times I've called him on the phone and said, hey, look, I got so many kids that did an amazing job on whatever, state assessment. I need some money. Can you send me $5,000? Coach, I got you. And literally will FedEx an overnight check to me. Now, I have the luxury to have that, and I try not to call on him all the time. But if it's dealing with those kids, he's going to provide. So you just have to make sure that you have those connections and people that you can get your hands on. And of course, he uses it as a tax write-off, right? But at the same time, guess who benefits from it? Our students.
Our third question is about finding success. How did you as leaders guiding a CSI school find success, especially in terms of managing financial resources? What specific practices proved crucial along the way? And a lot of this we've talked about already, so it'll be quick. Of course, keeping the ASIP plan and budget in sight, always referring to that. Teaching leadership teams to be stewards of resources. You know, it's necessary, allocable. Some of that can be kind of abstract for your leadership team. So I actually come when we do our July meeting and when we do our January meeting with budget revisions with one pager of allowable expenditures. We talk about what's allowable. So we're always, and if you were in CSI meeting yesterday, they talked about those evidence-based practices. Come with links to those websites like What Works Clearinghouse. And so we work through those resources so that the leadership teams aren't wasting time and going off in a direction that it's hard to reel them back in. And then just giving leadership teams time and space. Sometimes they can't do this in their building, this work. That's why we bring them to central office. We lock them in and lock them down to the work at hand. It just gives them that time together. And then providing meaningful professional development, like I mentioned before with Mr. Jones coming in and teaching that process step by step with our teams. And then ensuring that that budget drives student success. The only other slide I have is just so that you get an overview of how the bulk of the CSI funds were spent in in Greenville Middle School. First and foremost, professional development. When you talk about sustainability when your funds run out, it's investing in your people. So we did tons, and I'm sure you'll talk about it some, of job embedded PD, side-by-side work with ELA, side-by-side work in math, side-by-side work with student engagement. So we really invested in professional development. We were also fortunate to get a robotics lab, which has changed the game as far as student engagement is concerned. Staffing, he was able to get an instructional coach just for the middle school. Of course, when his funds ran out, I stole her with my ESSER funds, but you know, I'll give her back. Extended learning opportunities. We were able to expand after-school tutoring, summer programs. We even did some Saturday catch-up days. Literacy materials, all the classrooms got nonfiction libraries. And then technology, Chromebooks, and viewboards. I'm gonna let Mr. Marlowe talk about those resources specifically.
All right, so staffing, and I think the key point here is just hiring in key roles. We were able to write into the ASIP that we would offer sign-in bonuses for those high-demand areas, those hard-to-fill areas. And so I would say, let me throw that nugget out there. It's very easy to try to entice employees to join us when you have a sign-in bonus when other districts are not offering or can't offer that. So I would say that's the biggest. Recruiting and retaining individuals, absolutely. The master schedule is key. A lot of times, master schedules are not is in the best interest of the students. It's always for individuals. So I will start there to see that we're utilizing every minute in the day and is it best for students. Intervention, build that into the schedule. Data meetings, they must be consistent, they must happen, and then what is happening inside of those data meetings. Instructional rounds was taking place inside of Greenville Middle. Instead of me sending my people out, we did instructional rounds in the building and we used those funds to provide subs to look at content areas. So we would have subs for all ELA teachers and we would go and watch each other present a lesson. And then from there, those individuals, those colleagues would critique each other. Now I was worried at first, but when I tell you they did an awesome job, they led the conversation, and they started to have honest conversation about what was going on in the classroom, and they began to fix instruction amongst themselves. So that was definitely powerful. And then professional learning, using these funds, I was able to send, I think, 10 teachers to Mega a few years ago. Last year we sent 8. This year, because of trying to use the budget, I think we're sending 8 more to Mega, and then have them to come back and do that turnaround training for the teachers. Technology, one-to-one, teachers are embedded with smart boards, you name it. They have everything at their fingertips. Wellness support, we use the funds to get some contract work with an outside counseling agency called BB&H Wellness, and they came in to focus on attendance and behavior. And then, of course, partnerships. We got in a contract with Scholastics that came in and provided side-by-side training for our English department, especially in the area of literacy. So those were some key ways that we use those school improvement funds to move forward. The next thing is the robot lab. This is for all 5th and 6th grade students. It's not just a select group of students, but all 5th and 6th grade students take advantage of this. They code, they make those robots do a number of things. We have drones that we fly in the classroom, even outside. So, and we use a large portion of our funds to put this lab in place. It's there. We have a teacher that has professional development to keep that lab up and going, even though those funds are gone.
Okay, to wrap us up, just lessons we've learned, what have we learned along the way, and what challenges we still have. I'm not going to read this verbatim, but you have the hopefully you scanned and have our presentation. Again, no one is an island. This is not a journey you take alone. Collaboration takes time, but it's necessary in this process. There is strength in vulnerability. I ask for help. I'm transparent. No, there's no dirty secrets. Everybody knows what we're struggling with and what the challenge is. And I ask all the time, the State Department, our vendors, roll up your sleeves and work side by side with us. We need you. Processes, systems, and monitoring provide a rhythm that's necessary to drive this kind of work. It may look differently at different schools, but the processes are the same. And be patient, even while you have immediacy about the work. You always want to keep that immediacy, but even small successes are successes, and you need to own those and enjoy them where you can. The challenges ahead are maintaining momentum. We are all tired, but just maintaining the work and getting energy from the work. Mr. Marlowe mentioned he's moving to the high school. It looks different. Accountability, your accountability indicators are the same, with the exception of adding grad rate and CCR, but even when you are looking at your ACAP data, that is driven by grade level standards. High school, that's not the case. ACT math, it spans from middle school math to junior year of high school. You have to get your staff to own a portion of that. It's not as clean. So there's more of a challenge. It's easier in English, but science and math, it's a little bit different, that data. Changes in staffing, we have less staff coming to us prepared, so that's a challenge. And sustainability, I feel really strong. We're in a good place once CSI and ESSER go away. My main concern is some of the staffing will have to scale back, and we've been funding, because a lot of funds in ESSER were earmarked with after-school and summer programs, and we're all title schools. We can't charge. So that's my fear, not fear, but that's my trepidation kind of moving in to being without these funds, is how are we going to transition with that extended learning? And then Mr. Marlowe mentioned his just tiny little blip in growth. He came up in everything. Except for growth, he went down like 0.08%. and he came down 2 points on the report card. Growth is a moving target, and our people believe that, okay, you've shown growth in your STAR data, so you're going to get your growth points. But that's not how growth works. You all know that. They're being compared to growth of everyone on their same level and their same grade level. So that's a challenge in kind of getting people to understand that and trying to figure out how to navigate it as well.
All right, so for the federal programs directors in here that have principals that have CSI schools, these are a few points that you need to be mindful of just moving in. This is my last slide. The lessons learned, being able to desegregate data, being able to understand it. You'll be surprised if you put data in front of most principals, they cannot tell you what's on it. And that's something that they have to work at. They have to perfect their craft. It's more than just going into a building and just managing behavior and those things. They're going to have to stay late, close that door, and understand these reports, and then how can we move forward with the resources that we have? The first thing, okay? Consistent data meetings, the culture and climate, we've already talked about that, and then incentives for all. The days are gone that the teachers are happy just to receive their paycheck and go home. We have to reward our staff as well, so please be mindful of that. And then challenges ahead, retaining teachers. We invest a lot of money, a lot of resources into those teachers for them to leave in a year or two, and then we start that process over. So how can we keep them in the building? Meaningful professional development. Just don't waste their times just because we got extra funds and everything else to pay these vendors to come in and provide PD because we need to spend the money. Make sure it's meaningful to the staff, because that right there will hurt your climate inside of a building. Parent involvement, student attendance, man, we're still struggling. So if you got any issues, catch me on my way out and let me know some ideas that you may have. And then time and personnel. I don't care how much money we receive from federal and state. If you don't have the time and you don't have the personnel, it makes it difficult. So just please keep those two things in mind with moving forward.
And finally, Miss Brittany Simmons said that we want to be braggadocious. Was that the word? I'm going to be braggadocious. Here are some of our big celebrations. We thrived during COVID learning interruptions. According to the Education Recovery Report Card, which was a study done by Stanford and Harvard, 2 districts in Alabama, Pike Road and Butler County, were in the top 10 nationwide, each showing more than a half a year's gains in reading from pre-COVID to 22-23. Woo! We thrived during significant changes, COVID, new courses of study, new curriculum materials, new staff from the State Department all the way down to the local school. We have thrived. In 21-22, named Cognitive System of Distinction during the accreditation process. And fall of 2022, GMS came out of school improvement. And we had a school come off the TSI list as well that year. And then school year 22-23, federal programs, compliance monitoring, no citations, no findings, no recommendations. Thank you all. And finally, if you want to contact us, I know we've taken more than our time, so we probably don't have time for questions, but please feel free to contact us. We are willing and able to help in any way we can. Thank you so much.
What a dynamic duo. So you can see why we brought them up, right? You saw that last bullet, no findings, we saw that. So if you have any questions for them, please put it on the parking lot or the virtual parking lot. So as Dr. Rush takes the stage, Dr. Rush, take your time, okay? I picked up 3 things, my 3 nuggets, okay? And I'm different, so what I hear may have not been what you like. When we cannot charge students, I heard that. No food with federal funds, I heard that part. And you made my day when you said, you could call that former student, and that was great, but what I loved was Packers. Because guess who the Packers beat in the wild card game? We're not going to say. But, and I've already looked at the schedule with the Browns. They play that team at home, so I'm looking forward to that. I need to find another table? I didn't say the team. I didn't even say the team, okay? Go Google it. Go just Google it. Who did the Packers beat in the wild card game? Oh, God. So if anyone has any openings, please let me know by the end of this evening.